Oh, Ted said this. He's actually in the back room, and he's trying to turn on the TV, and it's not going on. He's trying to turn on the TV, and he finally goes, oh, it's not plugged in. I go, no, oh, sorry, I did that. It's not plugged in. And he says, it's amazing what happens when you give something power. And I looked at him, and I was like, what you just said was really deep and profound. He was just talking about the TV, but he says, it's amazing what happens when you give something power. You're going to learn a lot about freedom moments. What I've learned in my journey of freedom is that freedom is just a choice. A lot of times we think freedom has a lot to do with more money, right? Like, if I have more money, then I'll be free. No, more money, in theory, would just give you the choice to choose what to do. It's actually not more money, it's the choice. So freedom is a choice. I've actually even worked with people who have a lot of money and aren't any more free. So what you're going to start learning is that in this journey, you're actually going to be given opportunities to choose what to believe, to choose where to turn the power on. Because remember, we give agreement with our beliefs. So we are either going to come into agreement with what the enemy is doing with these beliefs, or we're going to come into agreement with what heaven is doing. And it's going to be yours to choose. Remember, God is in charge, but he's not in control. Remember, that he gave us free will. He says, you choose. I love you enough to choose. Choose life. Like, he even kind of goes, I might as well probably give you a little option. I would choose life. Right? So us as a parent, we're like, make good choices. God's saying, I'm going to give you a choice. So he won't control you. He is in charge of all these things, but he's not going to control you and force you to choose. That's yours. That's yours. So we're going to learn today how to ensure that we are making choices from heaven's perspective, from the freedom realm. Now, I will admit, I forgot to give you a little bit of additional things to your homework. So if you turn to your notes, you're going to see this ripple effect. You can do this now, or you can do this. You can partner with today when we have another break. You can do this with what we're talking about today. The power of also understanding our limiting belief is first understanding it, but then is to actually take note of what it's doing in all the areas of your life. Because what you'll start to realize is that, oh my gosh, it wasn't the economy or my boss or my husband, or it has so much to do with this belief, and I'm just finding anything that confirms it to be true. So what you're gonna do on this is you're actually, where it says my belief, you're gonna write your limiting belief in that circle, and then you're gonna ripple out to say, when I'm in that belief, what does that do to my mind and my spirit? What does that do to my health and well-being, my career, my finances, and my relationship? This is where actually Sarah Feldman, will you raise your hand, Sarah? Where is she? Sarah Feldman. There she is, right there, right here. Sarah's the one out there with that weird thing sitting on the couch. It's a Beamer. This is why I was like, Justin, here's a few things that have changed my life. Jesus, coffee, and Sarah. Okay, so we've brought her in today. Not only is she gonna be kind of doing a lunch and learn, but she is all about health freedom. So she actually will take a stand in helping people unlock how to get free in their health. Because how many of you know we could make more money, but the minute that you get sick, you can't really do that well. We are nothing without our health. So we've partnered with Sarah to do some health freedom work. I told Justin, get on that Beamer. If you're like, what's a Beamer? Go find out. It's free. It's worth the price of admission. We're going to have Sarah talk a little bit more. But even for me, my health and well-being, I was exactly like this man too. My chatter in my brain was off the charts. I could not, because of my limiting belief, I couldn't get my mind to slow down. And it wasn't even necessarily having conscious thoughts. It was just spiraling. It was whether it was anxiety or whether my thoughts were jumping or I couldn't kind of finish sentences in my brain, all the things. Number one, I realized that had a lot to do with my limiting belief. Come to find out when I sat with Sarah, it actually meant that my brain was starting to short circuit too. It's incredible when you start to put some of this work together. So when you look at some of these, you're going to start to go, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that belief had so much to do with my own health. I didn't know that had to do with actually what my finances look like. And some of you may go, man, this is really wreaking havoc on my relationships, but it's actually making me money. But I'm tired. Remember, we talked about this last night. Remember, your limiting belief sometimes too will get you to where you are. It'll make you look successful, but then the rest of the pieces are falling apart. But I'm also here to tell you, and I said this to Justin last night too, we live in a world that accommodates to anxiety. We're like, yeah, I have anxiety too. I'm just kind of struggling with it. I'm just kind of coping with it. No. I'm sorry, but we are not supposed to reflect a world that copes with anything. Do you hear me? I'm here to tell someone today that whatever it is that you're struggling with, I don't want to downplay it. Please do not hear me wrong. I am not here to downplay your pain or your anxiety or your depression or anything that you've experienced. What I'm here is to call you in as a child of God, that Jesus Christ came and died for you and said, I have come that you might have life and life more abundantly in all these areas. And so we cannot be accommodating to what the world is saying about our marriage. You know, I just go to my girlfriends. I don't really talk to my husband because he just doesn't understand. Stop that. Stop that. You're going to stand in the gap for your kids this weekend. You're going to stand in the gap for your marriage this weekend. You're going to stand in the gap for finances this weekend. You're going to stand in the gap for your health this weekend. Why? Because there is a bridge and his name is Jesus. Do you hear me? And then we're going to do our part. Remember, I said, I'm going to act like it depends on me, but I'm also going to partner with God and pray like it depends on him. This is a both and. Peter got out of the boat. That was on Peter. Then he walked on water. That was Jesus. Some of us won't get out of the water or get out of the boat. Jesus is like, walk to me. We're like, okay, I'll walk on water. He's like, get out of the boat. Do you know what I'm saying? Someone's like, great, I'll walk on water. That sounds awesome, Jesus. He's like, we have to get out of the boat. That's on us. This is what we're doing this weekend. We're going to do some push-ups. Last night you did them. Good job. You did a few push-ups. Good job. Now we're out of the boat. Now today we're going to walk on water. That's on Jesus. So these areas, again, are not to create any shame. Get it out on paper. See it for what it is. Why? Because when we shine the light of truth on it, shame has no place. It has no place. And we're going to keep doing that over and over and over again. And you're going to start building communities with people, just like even Cammie and I and Amanda and I and even my mom and I. When we get in the wrong lane, which we're going to talk a lot about, we go, oh my gosh, that was completely in my wrong lane of thinking. I was in the wrong belief system. Thank you, though, for being there with me. That's what community does. This is not to make you a more perfect person. This is actually to create the space for you to be a little bit vulnerable and to let people in on your process. I have to actually give credit to my husband for that one. So we're doing a podcast. And my husband is one of those guys, he's a man of few words. If you know him, he's a man of very few words. There's my in-laws and my sister-in-law right there, everybody. I know. Little did they know that they were going to get their socks rocked this weekend too. They're like, we're coming for you. I was like, no, you're coming for you, baby. I'm coming for you, baby. So they would also attest to this. Travis speaks very few words. He's also a man that processes so much in his head that when the words come out, it's so bullet pointed that the rest of the world doesn't really understand what he's saying because he's processed it in his head and then he expects everyone to know what he said. Anyone else been there? Who are those people that then you talk in bullet points and everybody else is like, I don't, and then they look at you like, did you not hear me? You're like, no, because you use 5 words and you probably process 7,000. I'm the opposite. I'm what's called a verbal processor, which means most of what I say isn't true. Except for here. I've mastered here. This even shows up to the point that my husband will say, but that's not what you said yesterday. And I'm like, I didn't mean that. He goes, are you lying to me? I'm like, I don't know. You guys, this was not good in our marriage. This was not good for a long time. So this right here, couples, is worth the price of admission. When an internal processor and a verbal processor get together in marriage, you should probably know that. Because what comes out of his mouth is truth. What comes out of mine is subject to change. Why? Because when it's coming up and out, it's all of my processing out, and then I go, oh, there it is. Don't worry about all this stuff, because that is it. That's brilliant for my husband to know. So generally what he says now, for anyone who's a processor married to a internal processor, verbal, when they're talking, just let them talk and ask them when they're done. Don't hold on to any of the words. Travis now knows this. When I start, he just holds space. She records me. She literally will take out her phone. I'll notice it now. She'll pull out her phone and she'll hit record. Then when I'm done, she's like, what part of that was truth? And I'll be able to point to, that was true, that I don't totally know, on and on and on. Anyways, that's there for you, okay? Verbal. Who's my verbal processors in the room? Yes. Tell the people in your inner circle that that's what you are. So when you start to go, say, what's about ready to come out of my mouth? I cannot confirm if it's true or false. Just go with me for a second. Best thing you could say. To my internal processors, raise your hand. Please give us some, include us in the journey a little bit. Will you please let us in your process just a little bit? Please. So we're on a podcast the other day, and we're talking, I don't even remember what we're talking about, but it was not on the subject of vulnerability. But we land on vulnerability. So we were using this word, and so I say to Travis, I'm like, what's your definition of vulnerability? Which is powerful, especially from a man's perspective, right? Because again, I think that men automatically go, well, I'm not vulnerable and I'm not emotional because I'm a man. That's not true, first of all. It's not true. That's not true, and that's the enemy's way to try to disconnect you from the rest of the world. So stop buying into that. So he says, almost without batting an eye, like this wasn't prompted. We generally don't even prepare for our podcast. Sorry, we don't. And he says, vulnerability to me is actually letting someone in on my process. They get to actually participate in my journey. Instantly, as he said that, I felt chills because I was like, that's exactly what vulnerability is. It's the ability to let you in on my process. So as you find yourself in the middle of your limiting beliefs, some days you're gonna look up and you're gonna invite God, heaven, and your people in on this. I think I'm making a decision in my limiting belief. And they're gonna go, tell me more. And you're gonna go, I don't know, Julie just told me to say that. I have no idea what to go from here. I don't know what this is. I don't know how this works. That's okay. Keep going. Just invite people, invite your community in on this process. Best thing you could do. So here's where we're gonna go today. We're gonna flip it. We're gonna take this concept of a limiting belief, and which already evokes that if something limits us, the opposite of that would be what? Freedom. Who said that? Yes. Freedom, right? So we know that if we have this limiting belief, that the likelihood of if something limits us, there means that there's probably this opportunity to be limitless. Right? But what we have to understand, and why this is important, is because a lot of times we get to this place of getting ready to let go of something. Remember, this is what we talked about last night. Just surrender it. Don't try to figure it out. Don't try to link this to your dreams. Don't try to algorithm this. Don't look for your formula. I just want you to surrender, and I want you to let go. But do you remember when I said yesterday that if anyone has overcome an addiction, you know that there's a difference between the day that you get free and then the journey of walking out your freedom. Two totally different days that sometimes people don't tell you when you quit the addiction. Right? And for me, the two hardest days are always the day that you start and then the day that you want to quit, because that's a real day. Right? It's why actually only 34% of people will even set a New Year's resolution. Like the numbers are actually going down year after year after year after year. Why? Well, probably because we don't really give a damn about the goals that we're setting. Sorry, I don't know if that's a word I'm supposed to use. I used it. Okay, we don't actually care. We're setting goals even built in our limiting beliefs. Ones that like, oh, I'll make a ton of money, I'll lose a lot of weight. And we don't care. They're not anchored in anything that we actually care about. It's based upon the world around us that maybe you will love me more. Maybe you will accept me more. So we're not even really setting goals that motivate us. The other is, I think also it's one of the greatest killers of dreams is disappointment. Because how many of you have set a goal and failed? Or how many of you even set a goal, you hit the goal, but then you didn't sustain the goal? So then how many of you want to set a new one? Exactly. One. There's always one in the room. Yeah, that's fair. But the majority of us are like, I don't want to do that again. Or again, to this whole point, I've had dreams and then I've watched them crumble, or I've watched them not manifest, or I've had prophecies and they've never come to pass. And so it's just easier to not. Right? Well, what studies have also shown is that if I'm an addict and this addiction of any kind, it could be drugs, it could be alcohol, it could be sex, it could be porn, it could be busy, it could be work, it could be money. It doesn't matter what the addiction is. The idea is that if I take that addiction and I remove it, that's half the battle. But the other half is that I'm actually not replacing it with anything different. Right? So what I've done is if I actually take the thing that I've been depending on and I remove it from my life, now I'm empty. So in theory, willpower can keep me going for 3 days, 30 days, sometimes even a few years. But in theory, willpower will wear off because I haven't actually filled it with something else. So an addict will go back to their addiction, not because they want it, but because it's a comfortable hell. It's familiar. At least I know what it's going to feel like to be abused. I don't know what it feels like to be in a loving relationship. So though that might blow our minds a little bit, I don't know. Remember how we talked about that my brain is designed to keep me where I am by way of where I've been, where my dreams are going to take me to where I've never been. So I actually don't know what it's going to feel like to be in a loving, committed relationship. So though I say I want it, I'm so familiar with this hell, at least I can be certain and depend on that. Or the person who drinks. This was my story, I told you. Every other day, sometimes every day, at least I knew at 4:30 what it was going to feel like to have a glass of wine. The feeling became a place of certainty. And now if you take that away, you're like, what do I do? Well, a lot of times we'll busy our time. We'll do things that don't really have our heart. We'll kind of find the next thing and then the next thing, but we're actually not anchoring ourselves in divine revelation, which is what we're going to anchor ourselves in today. But the space in between is called liminal space. Has anyone ever heard of this before? Oh, yeah. We didn't even know. It's called the great hallway in between. And what the great hallway in between is, I'm going to let go of the lie, but I haven't fully grabbed onto the truth yet. I hear it. I hear the word of God. I'm seeing it, but it hasn't sunk in. I understand it, but it's not yet transforming who I am. This is that gradually, suddenly. Sometimes this is suddenly, and sometimes I've got to walk the hall of the great in between. Right? If we look at this in Matthew 12, verse 43, it says, when an impure spirit comes out of a person, it goes through arid places seeking rest and does not find it. This is basically saying, I'm going to take my limiting belief and I'm going to send it off. It's going to go spin. It's going to go spin. But then it says, I'm going to just return to the house I left. And when it arrives, it finds the house unoccupied, swept clean, and put in order. So a lot of us, this is what we do. We're like, great, I'm going to clean everything up. I'm going to make this thing look bright, but it's completely empty. It's completely empty. Then it says, then it goes and it takes with it 7 other spirits more wicked than itself, and they go in and live there. And the final condition of the person is worse than the first. It comes back. Why? Because we didn't fill it. So what do? Simple, stupid, hard answer? We fill it. You're like, this is what we paid for? Yeah. Fill it with something different. What do I fill it with? Hebrews 12 says this. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders us. It's what we saw Justin do. It's what we did in our dancing. I'm going to throw this thing off. This actually gives us instruction. I'm going to throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. Some of you are wrapping yourselves around sin and you're accommodating it to culture. Stop. You're accommodating some of these things to culture and you know that it's not good for you anymore. That would have been alcohol for me in every sermon. I felt like it was the thing I was supposed to lay down and I was like, God, you must be talking to someone else and I'm hearing you talking to them, but you surely are not talking to me. Because it's not that bad. Holy Spirit's like, you need to lay it down. I was like, that sucks for them. I'm just hearing the Spirit for them. Hey, God wants you to quit drinking. Do you hear him? Do you know? Some of you know exactly what I'm saying because the Holy Spirit has been on you. And it might seem ridiculous, but let me tell you this. I say this to my kids all the time. With obedience comes blessing. The blessing you're wanting is after just walking out obedience. Obedience is hard when you don't understand why. Again, how many of you have kids? There's certain times as parents that I say this to my kids all the time, you're going to understand exactly why I'm telling you not to do that. And there's going to be a lot of times that you don't know why I'm saying that. And you're going to have to trust me to obey because on the other side of obedience is blessing. The blessing you're looking for is on the other side of obedience. And by obeying, you're actually going to develop the trust that you need to anchor yourself in to the revelation he's going to give you. Trust is your anchor to the revelation. Remember again, he's not going to give you the revelation if it's going to break you right now. Obey and watch as he actually opens up this door of revelation. If we keep going, it says, so drop the sin that easily entangles us and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, on revelation, fixing our eyes on him, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross. The only way to consistently demonstrate the kingdom is to view reality through God's kingdom. We have to see Jesus. We have to throw off the things that don't serve us any longer. We have to say no to the sin that's entangling us. We have to obey before we understand why. And then we have to fix our eyes on Jesus and then don't stop. The only way to actually start making decisions based upon what heaven is doing is to see it. Galatians 5:1 says, it is for freedom that Christ died. It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm then, and do not let yourselves be burdened again by a yoke of slavery. Cindy Smith said this to me. I'll say it again. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Some of us are not resisting it. Here's step one in this process. We broke the back of the limiting belief last night, period, end of story. That doesn't mean that your game of resisting it is done. So if you leave tomorrow and you're like, that thing's coming back, Julia, this didn't work. Resist the enemy and he will flee from you. Resist, stand your ground. Why? Because there's also going to be this point of standing is going to strengthen you along the way. So when you get to the point of the blessing, you have the oomph to hold it. The weight of a blessing is more than most of us could probably bear right now. And God is that good that he's not going to give you something that you can't hold. So the journey, the liminal space, the in-between, the building of your belief is actually making you stronger. So when you get to the dream, when you get to the goal, that you have the foundation to hold it. He wants you to have the capacity to carry the weight of the blessing. Anyone who's had a baby understands this. There's all this preparation, and then you hold that baby and you're like, oh dear God. I hold a human in my hands. The same is true for the dream. He's actually building strength and resolve within you so you can hold the weight of the blessing. That's the point, but we're gonna have to keep our eyes fixed on Jesus. So here's our new game. It's offense, it's not defense. Some of us have been playing defense for far too long. It's generally what our limiting belief does. It gets us focused on the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy. Anyone heard of Maslow's hierarchy? It's a guy who basically develops this theme around what we need as people to actualize. What we would call it is that it's this design around why that God brought us here to look from heaven to earth. This is a worldly tool that I think has heavenly oomph underneath it. So will you go with me for just a second? So Maslow is a guy who basically says that we have these human needs, but the only way to actualize, we'll call it to bring heaven to earth, to actually see what God is doing, is if we go through this order of needs. And he calls this, you need your safety, security, and stability needs. Right? This is like, I need to know that I'm safe. I need to know that I'm protected. I need to know that I'm not going to die. I need to have food, shelter, all of these things. Then at some level, I need to have a job. I need to have something that pays my bills. I need a fence around me. I need a house. I need protection to know that I am safe. All fair. Anyone fair? True. Right? He says, once we have those needs met, then in theory, we can actually start doing community. We can be in relationship with people. It's called love and belonging. And the idea is that once now I can actually be in this committed relationship, then I'm actually going to have room to start doing things that are called success, right? Then I actually have the ability to apply myself in a career or in the workplace or in the world around me, and I can actually do really cool things. And once I do that, the idea is that then I will actualize, is the word that he uses. We'll call it, then we could bring heaven to earth. Why? Because I'm actually so heavenly minded that I do earthly good. Here's the problem with this, though. Those bottom from love, safety, security, stability, and love and belonging are all called deficiency needs. Everybody write this down. They're called deficiency needs. The interesting thing about deficiency needs is that it means that I need them, but once I have them, I don't need more of them. And actually, it starts to do the opposite. So anyone ever take vitamins and then you pee yellow? Such an awkward example. Well, that's basically what your body is doing, is it's absorbing as much of that it needs, and then it's flushing out whatever it doesn't. That's what a deficiency need is. Here's what we do. Our limiting belief causes us to function and focus only on our safety, security, stability needs. That's fair. How many of you look at your first memory and you look at your limiting belief and you're like, no wonder I've been freaked out my whole life. No wonder I feel like there's never enough. No wonder I don't feel like I was loved and cared for. No wonder. Like, that makes sense. part of this is we have to understand it does. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna pursue safety, security, stability, and love and belonging needs to fill that hole. The problem is we keep doing that for the rest of our lives. So we get another house. We try to make more money. We have a ton of friends on Facebook. We even walk into a room with 100 people and we've never felt more lonely before in our lives. Now we have 2 working incomes. We go on the vacation, we do all the things, and though it's nice, anyone still felt that hole of like, but I don't feel fulfilled. And I keep chasing the dollar, and I keep chasing belonging, and I keep chasing love, and I don't know why. Why? Because I'm actually focused on the bottom of my safety, security, stability needs. I'm looking for my deficiency needs to be met when I don't need more of those. If you look at the top of success in this idea of actualization, those are actually called your growth needs, which means the more of those I get, the more of them I want. What does that mean? The more revelation I lean into, the more of heaven I'm aware of, the more I want it. But most of us stop at our deficiency needs because our limiting belief keeps sucking those things dry. It doesn't know where else to get that need met, which is why we stay there. I'd like to propose that Maslow had a little bit of this upside down and backwards. And as believers, we're actually not supposed to look at the bottom and work our way to the top, that we're actually supposed to look at the top and let it inform how we go from the bottom to the top. We're actually supposed to look from Revelation and we're supposed to build from that place. Do you hear what I'm saying? We've been so focused on safety, security, stability, and we wonder why we're never actualizing. Well, what I'd like to suggest is that we are here to look straight at heaven to get its perspective, and then we're supposed to look at the need around us, and we're supposed to solve the problem around us based upon the revelation that he gave us. But what we're doing is we're looking at the problems around us, trying to think how to solve those from the same perspective and wondering why we're getting less than mediocre, not awesome results. This is why. This is why today we're going to anchor you into a limitless vision. We're giving them away like Oprah. Who wants a vision? Who wants one? You get one. Good. Okay, here's what this is. This is what we're talking about. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to, for a minute, we're not going to downplay some of those needs. Some of you may even go, but Julia, you don't understand. Those needs aren't being met right now. That's fair. I think that's super fair. Some of you are like, oh, that's why that second house isn't making me happier. Or that vacation isn't making me any happier. This is why. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do. All of those needs that are still valid, we're just going to put them right over there for just a second. And we're going to train you over the next couple of sessions on how to actually look at these things from heaven's viewpoint. And this is all through this idea of what's called the limitless vision. So let's unpack this, remember, because the words are always words, but it's always the thing under the thing. So if we unpack what this means and this divine revelation, the reason that this was so important to me, because after teaching this topic for years in mastermind groups, everybody seemed to have a vision, but the vision didn't have them. And that was devastating to me because you can even put it on the wall, but it doesn't infuse the way that I live. And so when I started to lean into this, I was like, God, you're going to have to give me more than just what the world has tried to understand what this means. So again, remember, when you think of the word vision, all of us already have an idea as to what this means. We're going to unlearn so we can relearn what God actually intended. So if we look at the word limitless, by definition, it has no limit. So profound. Limitless basically means I'm going to take this box, I'm going to take off the top. There is no limit, no end, and no boundary. Even more undignified than this. Uninhibited. Okay, that's what limitless means. Now, when we start to unpack what vision means, I did what most people do. I Googled it. Start there. It's always a great place to start. It's not our end point, though. Vision, by definition, is the ability to think or plan the future with imagination and wisdom. I actually wasn't expecting that definition. It says to think and plan the future with imagination and wisdom. It's conveying a revelation. The Latin root word means see. Immediately when those words landed, I was like, what does imagination and wisdom mean? Because this is the thing under the thing. Here's what imagination means. It's the action of forming new ideas, images, or concepts of external objects not present to the sense. You guys, this is the ability to see something that I can't actually see. It's like saying, I don't care what you look at, I care what you see. That's what that's basically saying. It's saying I'm actually able to form new ideas and images beyond what's present to what I'm currently seeing. It's the ability of the mind to be creative and resourceful. If you look at wisdom, it's the soundness of action or decision with regard to the application of experience, knowledge, and judgment. It's knowledge and the capacity to make use of it. But here's what's really important. It's also said to be unbiased judgment, compassion, knowledge, self-transcendence, and non-attachment. How many of us are a little too attached? We'll call it, how many of us have expectations? Here's what an expectation is. Expectation is, oh my gosh, I'm gonna come home tonight and my husband's gonna have made dinner and the kids are gonna have to be bathed and they're all gonna walk in and go, Mom, we love you, we miss you, whatever you say goes, the house is gonna be clean, nobody's gonna touch me, it's gonna be awesome. Oh, is that just me? That's just me, okay. And you walk in the house and what happens? None of those things. In fact, you're actually greeted at the door and Travis says, what's for dinner? And you're like, I'm gonna lose it. My Hulk, you know this, all of a sudden I was like, whoa, what do you mean, what's for dinner? And kids are running around and there's a poopy diaper sitting over there and the floor has not been swept for probably days and nobody's listening to you and nobody appreciates you and you lose it. It's called an unmet expectation. And we have them all the time. This is even when you go, your boss is like, hey, I want to talk to you. Can you come in? And all of a sudden, worst case scenarios run through your mind. I'm going to get fired and he hates me and I've never done a good thing and I will never done it and on and on and on and on. And you sit down and you're ready to go to town on all the things of why you want to keep your job. And he's like, hey, you've done such a great job. We're going to give you a raise. And you're like, ooh. And then you walk out feeling like an idiot because you didn't say thank you or any of the things. Why? I had an unmet expectation. I had an expectation and it wasn't met by you. And then I let that thing rule me. Here's what I need you to understand about the power of a vision. It's actually going to help you unattach. We need to unattach. What does this mean? It means high standard, no expectation. Do you hear me? God's about ready to give some of you downloads, prophecies, words, dreams, and we have to have a high standard with no expectation on how this is gonna work itself out. Most of us get a prophecy, and the day we get the prophecy, we think it's the day that it's gonna be fulfilled. And then we're mad on day 2 when we haven't seen him bring fire and brimstone to the world. Do you know what I'm saying? That's me. I'm only preaching my sermon for me. The day that you get the prophecy and the day that it manifests are 2 totally different days. How many know that? The day that you decide to lose weight and the day that the weight actually is lost is 2 different days. The day that you have a baby and the day that that baby leaves the house to go and do adult things is not actually the next day. Come to find out, what do they say? The days are long, but the years are short? Something like that says nobody when you're raising babies. Until you're not. And they're getting married. And they're leaving the home. So part of this with vision is that what I need you to understand is that it is unbiased and not attached. So here's my definition. This is what actually it means to walk with a limitless vision. It's an unbiased, non-attached way to live that allows you to form new ideas, images, and concepts beyond current external circumstances and establish a more creative and a resourceful approach to life. This is what vision is. Here's what I'm gonna say. Those first couple of words are your key words. We have to unattach ourselves from our will, our way, and our time, and we need to let God be God. Do your part, get out of the boat, but then unattach. And guess what? This is a day-to-day, sometimes minute by minute, unattaching from my expectations and reattaching to the vision that God has. This is gonna take some work, and that's okay. This is what it means to actually walk in vision. So we're gonna get that today. Are you ready for this? I know. Good. Are you ready for this? Okay, great. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm actually going to walk you through the exercise, and then I'm going to help you identify how to link more of the concepts of vision with your own. Is that fair? Everybody can trust me since we're on this journey of trusting? You're like, I don't know that I can. You have to. You actually don't get a choice. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm actually going to walk you through this exercise of how we identify what your vision is. So as we layer in some of the concepts, you actually have a vision to come to life. Is that fair? And then we'll take a break. So if any of you have to pee or that, if you have to pee, go pee, but otherwise we'll take a break after this. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. If you remember last night, and I'm actually going to have you go back a few slides to the belief formation equation, because believe it or not, if it works for a limiting belief, the beauty in this is that it also works for a limitless belief. So if you remember last night, we talked about how the brain works, and it's designed to identify pain equally as much as it's wanting to identify pleasure. It's wanting to find those moments and go, oh, this is good, I like this, I want more of this. What is this? The same is true in the gift that God had given us and the vision that he had for your life, that this was planted early on. You and I both know that this came before eternity, before you even set foot on this planet, before you were 5, 8, however old, that God had a plan and a destiny for your life. But I believe that just as God had given you that plan, we know that the enemy came and gave you a lie to try to distract you from his truth. So today we're going to lean into his truth, but where we're going to start is the exact same exercise, only this time we're going to go back to your very first experience that was positive. So we're going to go back as early as you possibly can. Somewhere in the ballpark of 5 to 8 years old is ideal because, again, this is when you had the most propensity to not be biased and totally unattached. You and I now have all the attachment and biases. So we want to go to your very first memory that was a positive memory. Again, this could run the gamut of something really simple. This doesn't feel like a profound moment. You just remember fishing with dad. That's it. You're just fishing with dad. This could be a habitual memory where you're like, every Christmas at grandma's, I just remember walking in and feeling love. I felt connected. I felt safe. I remember the smells of Christmas every year. Or this could be that, like, I won the kindergarten soccer game and I remember it and I was like the queen of the world. Great. That can be it too. So I don't want you to discount the memory. I just want you to go to your first. And again, this will be something that you felt safe. You felt happy, you felt joy, you felt love, you felt connection. And for some of you, this might be harder than last night. This was my experience. What was also tricky for me is that my best experience was my worst experience. So they were interlocked, which, come to find out, played against each other quite well. So when I had to go back to this memory, again, I remember sitting down with my mom going, was this a happy memory? Because all my feelers were completely disconnected from it. So if this feels harder for some of you, that's okay too. So what we're going to do is the same exact thing. We're going to give you a few minutes. We're going to play a little bit of music, something maybe, I don't know, a little bubbly. Spirit of revelation, Ted, whatever you think feels revelatory. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to sit with, okay, what was my first experience? And then what did I make that mean? Remember, just like we did last night. We're kind of looking for that cause and effect of like, oh, this is happening around me, which must mean what? Right? Or work through your emotions. I was feeling happy and loved and connected. I was feeling seen and heard. Write down some of those things and then go, why? What was happening around you? What was happening within you that made some of those pieces come together? So it's almost like our formula, A plus B equals C. So take some time, and actually, if you want to turn to the person sitting next to you, you can do that. I had someone say last night, I asked my husband what they thought, and he said, we're not supposed to talk about it. Julia said, we're not supposed to talk about it. I was like, girlfriend, you follow me everywhere we go because you're following instructions. Thank you. You're allowed to talk about it. So maybe you get in communities, maybe you get in a circle right now, maybe you come with the people you come with and process this out for just a couple of minutes. The idea of this is you're actually supposed to lean in and feel what was being felt in those moments. If you're struggling with those feelers a little bit, that was my experience. This was hard for me to do. It doesn't mean it's wrong. But do your best to lean into, in theory, how you probably should have felt or emotions that you wanted to feel even though maybe you didn't feel them in the moment. Those who are feeling and are connected to it, go there. Feel it. Let the Lord start downloading some words. Let him create some space to actually talk to you in this moment. But do this with the people around you. And if you want to break rules and do it by yourself, you can do that too. Okay, so we'll give you a couple minutes.
Hey there, dreamer. I just wanted to take a second and to say thank you. I wanted to thank you for your yes and your boldness to not only get started, but to stay the course. I recognize firsthand that dreaming can sometimes be an overwhelming and oftentimes lonely process. And so I just wanted to take a minute to acknowledge you and to say thank you, because if I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times, that the world needs your dreams. I also want to invite you to join our community, to actually engage with us, to continue this conversation. And you're going to see a QR code on your screen, and that is the best place to get started, where we will make sure that you get connected to a community who is also committed to unlocking the dreams that are on the inside of them, to breaking the limits that keep them bound, and are doing their part in bringing heaven to earth. So you no longer have to do this alone. We look forward to being a part of this journey with you. We thank you for your yes, and we cannot wait to see what God does in and through your life.